Welcome back. In today's deep dive, we're unpacking one of the boldest predictions to hit the crypto world lately. A forecast from ChartNerd, a website known for its detailed technical analysis, claiming that XRP could skyrocket to $27 before facing a brutal 95% crash. This isn't just another random crypto rumor. It's a full-blown technical analysis built on market data, historical price patterns, and something called the Gaussian channel, a technical model that helps analysts identify long-term market trends. We'll break down what this means, how ChartNerd reached this number, what history tells us about similar moves, and what it could mean for investors watching XRP's next big move. Over the years, XRP has been one of the most talked about cryptocurrencies in the market. It's not just because of its link to Ripple or the legal drama that surrounded it, but also because of its ability to shock both its believers and doubters with explosive movements. ChartNerd's recent analysis revisits this idea that XRP might be gearing up for one final major rally before the cycle resets. Now, according to ChartNerd's breakdown, XRP's price action inside the 3-month Gaussian channel is showing a repeating pattern that could be signaling an incoming parabolic phase. The Gaussian channel, in simple terms, is a smooth indicator that tracks the overall price direction by filtering out short-term noise. Think of it like a moving tunnel that wraps around price movements. The upper and lower edges of that tunnel, called regression bands, act like invisible walls that prices often bounce between over time. What ChartNerd noticed is that every time XRP approaches the upper regression band in this model, something big tends to happen. In those 2017 and 2020, touching that upper limit was a precursor to massive price breakouts. Back in 2017, for example, XRP shot up over 30,000% within months after interacting with that upper zone. In 2020, a smaller but still impressive rally followed the same signal. So when ChartNerd's data shows XRP's price structure now pressing against a similar level again, the implication is clear. Another large-scale move could be forming. Right now, XRP is described as trading within an accumulation range. That's a term traders use to describe a quiet zone, a period when big investors are building positions before the market expands again. It's the calm before the storm. ChartNerd's projection argues that once momentum builds and XRP maintains its structure within this channel, the next expansion phase could send the coin surging up to the $27 range. This projected move is referred to as a blow-off top. For anyone new to trading, that's the term for the final intense rally at the end of a market cycle. The phase when optimism hits its peak, prices explode upward, and then the cycle exhausts itself. Imagine the market as a rocket. The blow-off top is that last fiery burst of fuel before the engine cuts off and gravity takes control. And that's exactly where ChartNerd's forecast becomes dramatic, because right after that blow-off top, they predict a massive correction. A drop of roughly 95%, bringing XRP back down near the $1 mark. Now, that kind of prediction sounds extreme, but if you zoom out and study XRP's past, it's not completely unheard of. XRP has a history of massive uptrends followed by deep corrections. After the 2017 rally that took XRP near $3.80, the price fell over 90% in the following year. A similar story unfolded in 2021, though on a smaller scale. ChartNerd's analysis connects these cycles through the Gaussian model, showing how each major peak coincides with the price hitting the upper regression band, followed by a long cooling off period that retraces much of the previous gains. The interesting twist is that even though these crashes have been severe, the bottoms are climbing higher each time. The Gaussian channel itself shifts upward over time, meaning even after a deep retracement, the new low could still be significantly higher than the old ones. In other words, the overall structure remains bullish in the long run, despite the volatility. So what does all of this mean for the average investor or trader? In essence, ChartNerd's analysis presents a roadmap, not a guarantee. The site is showing a scenario where XRP experiences one last explosive move before a structural reset. The takeaway isn't to panic or blindly follow the numbers, but to recognize the cyclical nature of crypto markets. Every market cycle has its phases: accumulation, expansion, distribution, and correction. XRP, according to this reading, could be entering the final stage of expansion. When we break down what this kind of analysis really tells us, it's about understanding behavior more than predicting exact prices. Technical analysis, especially models like the Gaussian channel, is a way of mapping out how prices have behaved historically and how they might behave again under similar conditions. It doesn't predict news, regulation, or sudden shocks, but it captures patterns that traders have historically reacted to. Let's slow down here for a moment and talk about that Gaussian channel in simpler terms. It's essentially a statistical tool. It uses a Gaussian or bell curve smoothing to filter out random noise from the market. The result is a smooth curve or channel that represents the average path of price over a given time. The upper and lower regression bands around that curve represent potential extremes, areas where the price tends to stretch before coming back toward the mean. When ChartNerd highlights that XRP is once again testing its upper regression band, it's a technical way of saying that XRP is reaching the edge of its historical comfort zone, the area where, historically, big rallies have started, but also where exhaustion has followed. So, in ChartNerd's framework, that's the danger and the opportunity rolled into one. If momentum follows historical behavior, XRP could enter its biggest rally yet. But when that energy fades, the pullback could be just as dramatic. Now, from an investor psychology point of view, this kind of forecast does something powerful. It creates awareness. The excitement of a big rally often draws in massive public attention, and that influx of new participants tends to push prices even higher, sometimes far beyond what fundamentals justify. That's the hallmark of a blow-off top. The euphoria feeds on itself. It's not just traders buying, it's social media hype, influencer coverage, and headlines like this one, all fueling the same fire. But when the top finally forms, those same emotions reverse. Panic replaces excitement, and selling pressure overwhelms the market. ChartNerd's prediction of a 95% correction fits into this historical rhythm. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and nearly every major crypto have experienced similar retracements after major bull cycles. The percentage might differ, but the emotional pattern is consistent: overextension, exhaustion, and reset. The reason this analysis resonates so much is that it combines technical reasoning with a story investors recognize: the repeating cycles of hope and fear that define the crypto landscape. For those new to XRP or trading in general, it's important to remember that technical models like the Gaussian channel don't take into account outside forces. Regulatory news, partnerships, adoption, and broader market liquidity can all shift outcomes. But these models are valuable because they show how price behavior tends to cluster, where momentum accelerates and where it fades. So even if XRP never reaches exactly $27, understanding where it might peak based on structure gives traders a framework for managing risk. Let's look at the bigger context. The crypto market as a whole is once again entering a speculative phase. Bitcoin halving cycles, renewed institutional interest, and macroeconomic shifts all contribute to growing optimism. In these environments, altcoins like XRP often follow Bitcoin's trend, but with more volatility, meaning sharper rallies and deeper corrections. If ChartNerd's analysis proves directionally correct, XRP's structure might mirror those earlier cycles: a surge driven by renewed liquidity, followed by an inevitable cool down as the market resets. It's fascinating to see how ChartNerd uses statistical tools to give shape to something as unpredictable as sentiment. Their projection to $27 isn't a random guess. It's derived from historical percentage moves and cyclical timing based on prior expansions. The model's logic is that if the same setup that triggered the last parabolic move is forming again, the outcome could be similar. But the site is also careful to highlight that such patterns can fail or shorten depending on macro conditions. When you hear $27, it's easy to imagine an overnight success story. But the bigger message here isn't the number itself. It's about recognizing the phase the market is in. Crypto tends to move in waves: long, quiet accumulation, followed by sudden vertical expansion, then long, grinding corrections. These waves repeat across assets, and traders who learn to identify them are better positioned to make informed choices. ChartNerd's report acts as both a roadmap and a warning sign. If history repeats, the upcoming phase could reward those who understand timing, but it could also trap those who assume the rally will last forever. For beginner investors, here's the key takeaway: always separate analysis from emotion. ChartNerd's data-driven approach shows what might happen based on history and statistical patterns, not what will happen. Markets are dynamic and can break patterns anytime. The Gaussian channel helps identify structure, but not certainty. If XRP truly follows its historical rhythm, a move toward $27 would likely represent a culmination of years of accumulation, followed by the inevitable cooling off. And that's perfectly normal in the world of crypto. Every expansion cycle eventually resets, not because of failure, but because markets need to breathe. In summary, ChartNerd's bold projection paints a vivid picture of what could come next for XRP. Step by step, here's what their model suggests. XRP continues consolidating within its current range. Momentum builds as it touches the upper regression band of the Gaussian channel. A parabolic breakout takes XRP up toward the $27 region. The cycle peaks, a blow-off top forms. A deep correction follows, potentially retracing as much as 95%. The long-term uptrend, however, remains intact as the Gaussian channel's base keeps rising. It's a full cycle story told through the lens of data and pattern recognition. Ultimately, this analysis isn't just about XRP. It's a reminder of how crypto markets behave: cyclical, emotional, and heavily driven by crowd psychology. ChartNerd's forecast gives us a framework to understand where we might be within that cycle. Whether XRP actually reaches $27 or not, the concept of identifying expansion and correction zones remains crucial. If you made it this far, you already know more than most casual investors. Keep learning, stay objective, and don't let the hype or the fear dictate your next move. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more in-depth analyses just like this. The crypto market moves fast, but knowledge moves faster. Until next time, stay smart, stay sharp, and keep your eyes on the charts.